Memento Mori, how thinking about death teaches you to live Stoicism. 2,000 years ago, when a Roman general rode through the streets in triumph, crowds cheering his name, a servant stood behind him in the chariot and whispered the same words over and over. Remember, you are mortal. Remember you must die. Not to ruin the moment. To complete it. The Romans understood something we have forgotten: the thought of death is not the enemy of a good life. It is the secret ingredient. Today, we avoid the subject entirely. We hide it behind hospital doors and polite phrases. We scroll, we postpone, we live as if the supply of tomorrows were infinite. And what does that get us? Days that blur together. Grudges held for decades. Dreams filed under someday. The Stoics took the opposite approach. They looked directly at the one certainty of life, and instead of despair, they found clarity. This practice had a name. Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. Stay with me, because this is not a dark idea. It might be the most life-affirming idea philosophy has ever produced. Why did the Stoics keep death constantly in view? Seneca put it plainly in his letters. We are wrong, he said, to look toward death as something waiting ahead of us. Most of death is already behind us. Whatever time has passed belongs to death now. We do not die all at once at the end. We die every day, hour by hour, as time slips away. That thought changes how you hold an afternoon in your hands. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, wrote reminders to himself in a private journal. One of them says, in essence, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, and say, and think. Notice what he did there. He turned mortality into a filter. Not a fear. A filter. If this could be your last act, is it worthy of you? And Epictetus, the former slave turned teacher, gave perhaps the tenderest version. When you kiss your child goodnight, he taught, whisper to yourself that this child is mortal, that what you love is on loan and could be recalled. Harsh? Only at first glance. Epictetus was not telling you to love less. He was telling you to love with your eyes open, so that no goodnight kiss is ever wasted on autopilot. So what exactly does death teach the living? Let me give you 6 lessons. The first lesson. Death teaches urgency without panic. There is a difference between rushing and moving with purpose. The person who forgets death drifts. The person who fears death scrambles. But the person who remembers death calmly asks, what actually needs to happen today? Think of a man who has talked about writing a book for 15 years. He has notes, plans, a folder on his desktop. Then a health scare lands him in a hospital bed for a week, and something shifts. He goes home and writes 1 page a day. Not in a frenzy. Just steadily, because he finally understands that someday is not a date on any calendar. A year later, the book exists. Nothing about his schedule changed. Only his relationship with time did. Seneca said we complain that life is short, but the truth is we make it short by wasting it. Urgency is simply respect for the time you have left. The second lesson. Death sorts your priorities instantly. Try this experiment. Ask yourself what is worrying you right now. The critical comment online. The colleague who got credit for your idea. Now place those worries next to the fact that your time here is finite. Watch how fast they shrink. A woman spends months agonizing over an office rivalry, rehearsing arguments in the shower, losing sleep over meetings. Then her father passes away, and in one terrible week, the entire rivalry evaporates from her mind. She cannot even remember why it mattered. Here is the question worth sitting with: why wait for grief to do that sorting for you? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly how brief and small most concerns are against the sweep of time. Memento Mori is a sorting machine. Feed it any worry, and it will tell you honestly whether that worry deserves your one wild, finite life. The third lesson. Death makes forgiveness easier. Grudges depend on a hidden assumption: that there is unlimited time to settle scores, to wait for apologies, to be right. Mortality quietly deletes that assumption. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we will all be gone soon, both the one who wronged us and ourselves, and that the best revenge is simply not to become like the person who hurt you. Picture two brothers who stopped speaking over an inheritance dispute. 8 years of silence over money that neither remembers exactly. Then one of them attends the funeral of a friend, watches a family weep over words left unsaid, and drives straight to his brother's house that evening. No speech. Just, "I miss you, and this is stupid." Was the dispute resolved? Not really. It was outgrown. When you truly feel how short the visit is, being right starts to look like a very expensive hobby. The fourth lesson. Death shrinks possessions and grows moments. Nobody, in their final hours, asks for their car keys. Ask anyone who works with the dying, and they will tell you what people reach for at the end: hands, faces, memories, one more ordinary conversation. The Stoics knew that fortune lends us everything and owns all of it. Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, practiced living simply on purpose, so that his possessions never possessed him. Consider the father who spent every weekend detailing a car his kids were not allowed to eat near. One day he catches himself yelling at his daughter over a scratch, sees her face, and something lands. The car is temporary. Her childhood is more temporary. He starts driving that same car, scratches and all, to the lake every Sunday with the kids inside eating crackers. Same object. Completely different life. The fifth lesson. The fear of death is fear of an opinion. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by things themselves, but by their judgments about things. And death was his chief example. Death itself, he argued, is nothing terrible, otherwise it would have seemed terrible to Socrates, who met it with total calm. What terrifies us is the story we tell about death. The Stoics also offered a striking comparison: you were not troubled by the endless ages before your birth. Why assume the ages after will be any different? A man who spends years in low-grade dread of dying finally sits with this idea. He realizes he has been afraid of a picture in his head, a picture he painted himself. He cannot control when death comes. He can completely control the story he tells about it. And once the story softens, the dread loosens its grip on his ordinary Tuesdays. That is the Stoic move: stop fighting the fact, start editing the opinion. The sixth lesson. Death is the source of gratitude for ordinary days. Here is a strange truth. The moments you will someday ache to relive are happening right now, disguised as routine. The unremarkable breakfast. The commute with your favorite song. Your mother's voice on the phone saying nothing important. Marcus Aurelius told himself not to dream of the life he did not have, but to count the blessings already in his hands and imagine how he would crave them if they were gone. You do not need to lose a thing to appreciate it. You only need to remember that you will. Try it tonight. Look around your ordinary evening, the lamp, the people, the noise, and say quietly, one day this will be a memory I would trade anything to revisit. Feel what happens. That is Memento Mori working. It does not add a single thing to your life. It reveals what was already there. So how do you practice this? Keep it simple. In the morning, before you touch your phone, take one breath and say to yourself, I may not see tonight. Today counts. That is it. 10 seconds. Some people keep a small reminder where they will see it: a coin, a note on the mirror, a single word. The Stoics used whatever kept the thought alive. Then, in the evening, sit for 1 minute and ask the question Seneca would recognize: if this had been my last day, was it worthy? Not perfect. Worthy. Did I love the people in front of me? Did I do my work honestly? Did I waste hours on anger that death has already made ridiculous? Answer honestly, forgive yourself quickly, and aim better tomorrow. Do this for a month and watch how the texture of your days changes. Here is the final thought. Memento Mori was never about dying. It is about waking up. The whisper in the general's ear was not a threat. It was a gift. You must die, which means you get to live, today, on purpose, with your eyes open. The Stoics kept a skull on the desk not to darken the room, but to light it. So remember you must die. And then go do something worthy of the day you have been given. If this idea moved you, share it with someone you love. Time with them is exactly what this whole philosophy is about.